Today on Alex Autos, we're out here taking a look at the all-new Mini Cooper Hardtop. Now this is an all-new model for this year, and it is significantly larger than the last generation Mini, even though it looks very much the same. Now the Mini is truly the only premium subcompact available in the United States, and as such it doesn't have any direct competitors in this country. We don't get the Mercedes-Benz A-Class, we don't get the Audi A1, or anything along the lines of the Opel Adam in this country. That means that the most direct competition for this model can be seen in something along the lines of a Volkswagen Golf, Volkswagen GTI, Ford Fiesta, perhaps a Ford Fiesta ST, a Kia Soul, and possibly a Fiat 500. Now it's important to keep in mind that none of those vehicles that I've listed are the same size or the same price as this Mini. Even though this Mini looks very much like the last generation Mini, it is completely new. It's only when you park them next to each other that you really see what's going on. This model is nearly 2 inches wider than the outgoing model. It gives it a wider stance, helps improve the handling. We now have these larger headlamps right up here that stay in place when you open the hood, and full LED headlamps are available, and that would be LED high beams and LED low beams in the same module. We can also get LED fog lamps and LED cornering lamps. Our particular model also has the optional and well-integrated parking sensors on the front and the rear. Now the important thing to keep in mind is that the Mini is not the same size or the same price as any of those competitors that I listed. This Mini is 151 inches long. It's actually over 4 inches longer than the previous generation Mini, which it replaces. That makes this a decent amount smaller than something like a Smart at 106 inches. This is also 7 inches larger than a Fiat 500. The Golf and the GTI are more than 1.5 feet longer, and that Kia Soul is a full foot longer than this. Now, a lot of the growth in this generation of the Mini has gone straight into the passenger compartment. We do get a little bit more room right back here for the rear passengers. The upright profile of the Mini really helps improve rear passenger room because you can see that the roofline is very horizontal as it goes towards the rear. We also have a rear hatch that is still very vertical, which aids in cargo practicality. Out back, you'd yet again be forgiven for confusing this with a previous generation Mini. All the design cues are shared with the previous generation Mini Cooper, but we have slightly different treatments to the tail lamps, and again, nothing is actually shared. It's just the design elements that are very similar to the last generation. Over here on this side, we have a single exhaust tip, and again, parked side by side, you can really tell the difference between this and the last generation. Under the hood is where we see the biggest difference between this and the last generation Mini. The base engine is now a 1.5-liter turbocharged 3-cylinder engine. It produces 134 horsepower and 162 pound-feet of torque. If you get the S model, that gives you a brand new 2-liter turbocharged engine. It's a 4-cylinder engine, and it produces 189 horsepower and 221 pound-feet of torque. Right on top of the engine, you will see a twin power logo, very much like BMW's twin power products. This does not mean it is a twin turbocharger setup. Instead, it has a single turbocharger, but it has 2 inlets into the turbine right on the single turbocharger. Fuel economy is definitely up for this generation. We start out at 30 miles per gallon city, 42 highway, 34 combined for the 1.5-liter model with the manual transmission. If you get the automatic transmission, that drops down to 29, 40, 33. If you opt for the 2-liter S model, then you'll get 25 miles per gallon in the city, 38 highway, and 29 combined with the manual, 27, 38, 31 for the automatic. Now you'll notice that the S model isn't really much of a drop from the 3-cylinder 1.5-liter turbocharged engine. Now that's primarily because the 4-cylinder engine is very efficient. At this point, you're no doubt wondering why Mini chose to use a 3-cylinder engine in their base model. The answer is fairly simple. It's all down to economy. Now in general, the more cylinders you have, the more loss you incur due to friction because you have more cylinders there on the inside of the engine. So a 1.5-liter 4-cylinder engine would be slightly less efficient in general, all things being equal, than a 3-cylinder engine using the same displacement. Now the downside to 3-cylinder engines, of course, is engine smoothness. A 5-cylinder engine is the first engine designed where there is overlap between the cylinders' combustion cycles. A 4-cylinder engine has no overlap. The cylinder cycles butt up against one another immediately. A 3-cylinder engine, the cylinder cycles are actually slightly apart from one another, so there are moments where the engine is basically doing nothing and creating no power for you. However, it is still more efficient in vast generalities than a 4-cylinder engine. Now, if you want to know more about that, then go ahead and click down there to the comment section on this video and let me know, and I will try and create a video on engines and the number of cylinders in them. Front seat comfort comes in at 10 out of 10 points. These are easily the most comfortable seats you can find in any compact or subcompact in North America. These are 12-way manually adjustable seats. We have an extending thigh cushion right here up front. You can also raise lower the seat. We have a manually adjustable lumbar support on the side, recline control right here, and then we have a 2-way adjustable headrest right back there. We also have a tilt telescopic steering column with a surprising amount of motion. The little gauge cluster there does go up and down with the steering column as you adjust it. Aiding matters, we have a passenger seat that has exactly the same adjustability as the driver's seat. The rear seats of the Mini are a little bit of a conflict because we get an incredible amount of headroom. I'm 6 feet tall, and if I sit upright in this rear seat, my hair is just barely brushing the ceiling, and we're in the model with the optional sunroof. However, legroom is not really a strong point in this vehicle. If I try and go over here to the driver's side, I do have this front seat adjusted for me, and I can't really fit my legs in the footwell. However, if I do move this seat forward a little bit, I can get my feet down there. It would be possible for 4 6-feet people to sit in the Mini relatively comfortably and go out to lunch. Even though the Mini is a strict 4-seat vehicle, there is no center seat position. We do have a 60/40 folding rear seat back. So if I pull this little knob right here, you'll see that this is the 60 portion right here. I'm sitting on the 40 portion. This rear headrest does fold, so that way it folds a little bit easier right there behind taller drivers. Now this does fold completely flat, but it is not completely level with the cargo area. It is about a 2-inch rise above that rear cargo area. Now, in an interesting twist, we also have this little lever right over here. We can lift that lever up, and then we can click the seat into place right there. Now the seat back is right up and down. That's not a very comfortable seating position, but you can do that to increase your cargo area right behind it. Now, one thing to note is that I was not able to install a child seat with the seat in this position. It's just too upright for child seats to install properly. If you want to know more about child seats and their interaction with the Mini Cooper, then go ahead and click that banner at the bottom of your screen, and you'll be taken on over to my child seat review of this same vehicle. Now, one thing to note is that if you do want access to that deep cargo well I showed you earlier, and you want the seat in this very upright position, then you will have to remove this cargo load floor completely from the vehicle, because as you can see, it is latched into place right here with this latch, and it's not in a position where you can actually scoot it forward to this position to maximize your cargo space right back there. You will have to remove the load floor from the vehicle. Let's take a quick look around the interior. Starting here in the back seat, you can see that little hump there between the 2 positions in the rear bench seat. Again, this is a 4-passenger vehicle. You can also see that split right there between the 60 and the 40 portions of the 60/40 folding rear bench seat. We have 2-way adjustable headrests right there, and you can see that seat belt right there on the side. Our model has the optional large panoramic 2-pane sunroof. You can see we have 1 pane right back there for the rear passengers and another one right here for the front passengers. Now you will notice that this fabric does not completely block the sunlight out. I did find that a little bit annoying during my time with this vehicle. Right over here we have 2-way adjustable headrests for both the driver and the front passenger. We also have fixed seat belts right there, again for both the driver and the front passenger. If we scoot down the passenger seat, you'll see that we have a knob right here on the side to adjust the lumbar support in the seat. This reminds me a great deal of Volvo seats. It allows a great deal of variation when it comes to lumbar supports. If you find other cars don't have quite enough, or there's not enough variation between the maximum lumbar support and the minimum, you may find this handy. An incredible amount of customization is available on Mini vehicles. We have the optional light colored door panels. Black door panels are standard. We also have the optional Harman Kardon sound system. As you can see, the speaker grill is a little bit different right over there. The door is mostly soft touch plastics. However, you will find some hard touch plastics lower on the door. We have a small storage compartment right down there. Our model is equipped with the most expensive leather option. This is $1,750. It does give you increased bolstering there on the bottom of the seat as well as on the side of the seat. We're taking a close look at the ambient light strip that runs across both front doors. The color is adjustable via a button in the center console, and you can see we're cycling through the various colors here. It does allow you a little bit more adjustability than you'll find in, for instance, some of the Ford products. Moving over to the dashboard, you'll see we have the first of the glove compartments in the vehicle. It's a small one that pops right out of the dash here. It's just about big enough for a wallet, maybe a wallet and a smartphone. That is positioned right above the main glove box, which is lower in the dashboard, and it's between the 2 passenger air vents. Below that small glove compartment, we have the large glove compartment. This is sort of the main glove compartment. If we open that up, you can see that we do have a large and deep compartment, and we also have an air conditioning vent right there in the back to help cool your belongings. I was able to fit a small tablet computer inside here. Moving over to the center of the dashboard, our particular model has this optional center channel speaker. We also have this ring of air vents that surrounds that center channel speaker. This is pretty much always blowing air out if the air is set to use these face vents right here. That helps keep it from blowing directly on your face. It gives you a little bit more diffuse air coming out. Below that center channel vent, we have this large circular cluster. Right here we have an LED readout. This is configurable within the Mini connected system. And then right in the middle of this, we have the Mini connected LCD. This is essentially the same LCD that you'll find in certain versions of the BMW 3 Series. Now this software operates very similarly to BMW's iDrive. If you want to know more about Mini Connected, then go ahead and click that banner at the bottom of your screen. You'll be taken on over to that video. Now this LED readout that goes all the way around this cluster right here is configurable within the software, and it can do a variety of different things. Right now it's imitating a tachometer, so as you can see, we're at idle. If I put my foot on the accelerator pedal, you can see it rises right there. It also tells you what mode you're in, so if I toggle over to green mode, it turns green. If I toggle over to mid mode, it turns amber. And then if I toggle over to sport mode, it turns red. Now below that display, we have dedicated buttons for AM/FM satellite radio, mode, track forward, backward, power and volume knob, and then we have touch sensitive buttons for our presets. If I hover my finger right over them, you can see the display will tell you what they are. Below that display, we have the controls for a dual zone climate control. We also have a parking sensor enable disable button right there, auto start stop enable disable, traction control on and off, and then the start stop button for this car is a toggle switch, very much like the other toggles in the car. Below those toggle switches, we have a 12-volt power outlet. We also have our auxiliary input and our USB connection for your smartphone or other media player. We have two very large cup holders that we're easily able to accommodate this large takeout soda. One nice touch is that they're low enough in the vehicle that they don't interfere with the buttons right here on this level. We have a very traditional shifter. Right now we're in drive. Push it to park. There's a little sort of cobra head handle right there on the front. We pull it over to the left for sport or manual mode, down for up, and up for down. At the base of the shifter is a ring, and this toggles around for the various driving modes. We have sport, normal, as well as green. And then over here you will find the controls for the Mini connected system. This is very similar to BMW's iDrive. As I said earlier, we have basically the same functions right here. Back option on this side. This is a touch controller, so not only does it toggle up and down and side to side, clicks to enter, it also rotates around, and we also have a finger writing recognition portion right there on the top of the button. Direct access buttons to media, radio, our menu, telephone, and the navigation right there as well. Our model has the optional center armrest. You can see that it lifts up and out of the way, and it is softly padded. Now if we open up the center armrest, you will find a BMW standard snap-in adapter. This allows you to snap in certain phones, smartphones and otherwise, right here into this little adapter. This is the blank. The real adapter would plug right in there. There are adapters available for certain iPhone models, BlackBerry models, etc. Over on the driver's side, we have this very stylized instrument cluster. We have our tachometer right over here on the left, a large central speedometer, and then we have a multi-information display right there below the speedometer. This series of LEDs right over here is the fuel level gauge. The multi-information display is controlled by the BC button right over here on the turn signal stalk. The display readouts are very similar to what you'll find in BMW products. We have our temperature, our clock, average fuel economy, mileage, etc. right there in that little display. Moving on out, we find this attractive 3-spoke Mini steering wheel with sport grips right up here. There are 3 different steering wheels to choose from in the Mini family. We have a voice command button right here, phone hang-up button, volume up, down, track up and down. Track up and down on media is actually controlled by these buttons and that multi-information display right there in coordination with this OK button. So you actually move up and down, you'll see the selection right there on that display, and then you click OK. Right over here on the left side, we have our cruise control buttons. Up here on the ceiling, the toggle switch theme continues. We have toggle switches for our map lights, dome light. This is our sunroof control right here. This changes the ambient lighting that we showed you earlier on the doors, and this is the other side's map light right there. On the driver's side, we have 2 sun visors. We have one in the normal position right over there, and then we have another fixed one right over here on the side window. Now right here under the front passenger seat, we have kind of an interesting space-saving feature. That's actually the subwoofer for the optional audio system in our particular model, nestled right there under the passenger seat rail. Now cargo capacity goes up from 5.7 cubic feet to 8.7 cubic feet in this generation. You'll notice that right here under this tonneau cover, I actually have a 26-inch roller bag right there and a 24-inch roller bag inserted right there into the trunk. And that's because the cargo load floor actually flips up from the bottom of the trunk, allowing you access to a little bit deeper storage well right under there. Now, as I said earlier, if you want to combine that deeper storage well with the ability to move those front seats forward in that locked position, not completely flat, you will have to remove the cargo load floor from the vehicle. Down here at the bottom of the cargo area, we can lift another flap, and that's where you will find the jack and the tow hook for the vehicle. There's no spare tire because we do use run flats. Putting that back down, you can see that we do have this storage well right there. It is enough to accommodate a 24-inch roller bag, as you can see, and some additional cargo on that side. However, you cannot put the load floor on top of the 24-inch roller bag. It's just not quite deep enough. If we do remove that bag, however, you will notice that this load floor can go in 2 different positions, very much like the Nissan Versa. This is level with the cargo area entry, and then we can lower it down to the next notch, and that is slightly below that. This also will stay in an upright locked position, level with those rear seats in their most reclined position. Now, as I said, with the bags in this position, you can safely load one 24-inch roller bag, one 26-inch roller bag right here under the tonneau cover and close the hatchback. In my exclusive trunk comfort index, we score 6 out of 10 points. This is very compact back here, however, it is nicely finished. One nice touch is that we do have two handles, one on either side of this tailgate to help you close the lid on yourself, but you will find more room in some of those competitors. Now, depending on the exact configuration of the model you get, this model may be lighter or it may be a little bit heavier than the last generation Mini Cooper. Either way, this model is an awful lot larger than the last generation Cooper, so the weight being very much the same is a very good thing when it comes to handling out on the road. Now, many people are of the opinion that a dimensional increase in a vehicle is always a bad thing, but that's not necessarily the case. The dimensional increase for this generation of the Mini has actually had some positive benefits when it comes to the behavior out on the road. The wider stance helps us feel a little bit more planted than the last generation Mini, and the increase in the wheelbase gives it a slightly less choppy ride, especially on broken pavement. Now, on the downside, the combination of things going on with this generation of Mini makes it feel a little bit less crisp, a little bit less precise than the last generation of Mini. When it comes to acceleration, I give this 8 out of 10 points. It is significantly better than the last generation Mini. It's actually a full second faster 0 to 60. I ran from 0 to 60 in 7.3 seconds in this 1.5 liter 3-cylinder model, which is a significant improvement over the last generation 4-cylinder model. Now, if you opt for that 2-liter Mini Cooper S model, your times will drop by about a second down to around 6.4 seconds 0 to 60, depending on whether you get the manual or the automatic. The manual is slightly faster if you're a trained manual driver. For the average person, the automatic is likely going to be the faster transmission choice. Speaking of transmissions, there were many rumors that the Mini would get a 9-speed ZF automatic transmission, very much like late Chrysler, Jeep, and Acura models, but that doesn't appear to be the case. This is still a 6-speed ASIN-sourced automatic transmission. It's a very good transmission, and it has been completely refreshed for this generation. The big change for the 6-speed automatic is the shift feel. This now feels very much like a dual-clutch automatic transmission. The shifts are very fast, they're very crisp, and the engagement is very, very direct. We also have a neutral coasting mode now, which operates very much like the Eco Pro mode in modern BMWs and the Eco mode in modern Volvos as well. So if you're in the green mode in this transmission and you take your foot off the accelerator pedal, the transmission basically shifts to neutral and you just coast along with the transmission in neutral and the engine idling. Now, under certain circumstances, that will help save fuel, but it really depends on the circumstance. So if you're going down a hill, that doesn't necessarily save fuel, which is why this transmission will also re-engage the engine if you're braking on a downhill slope. This 3-cylinder engine feels very different than the old 1.6-liter 4-cylinder engine. This has an awful lot more torque, especially more low-end torque than that old engine that it replaces. And the difference isn't just noticeable in the 0 to 60 time, it's noticeable in pretty much every driving situation out on the road. This is much more engaging. It feels much faster out on the road. You get more instant throttle response. You really have an awful lot more fun out on the road. Now, on the downside, the 3-cylinder engine noise is definitely obvious. This certainly feels and sounds like a 3-cylinder engine. It is certainly not as smooth as the 4-cylinder S model or as the 4-cylinder competition. It's not as smooth as the old 4-cylinder Mini either. Now, even though we have relatively narrow tires in this vehicle, the light curb weight helps us get 9 out of 10 points when it comes to braking. I ran from 60 to 0 in 111 feet, which is very short for this kind of vehicle. Now, when it comes to fade resistance, this isn't quite as good as something along the lines of a Ford Focus ST, but it is very, very good. Now, in many ways, the most direct competition in the United States for the Mini is the Volkswagen Golf and the Volkswagen GTI. The GTI is noticeably quicker than this. It is yet a second faster than the Mini S model. It also handles just slightly better, but I don't think the feel is as good out on the road. The steering in the Mini is very quick, so that's the number of turns lock to lock in the steering wheel. There aren't as many turns in the steering wheel. That means a slight movement to the steering wheel means a large movement of the actual wheels that are doing the steering on the car. It gives it that characteristic go-kart-like feeling out on the road. Now, that combined with the new wider stance and the longer wheelbase really gives us a nice feel out on the road. Even though this generation of Mini isn't as sharp as the last generation of Mini, in my opinion, this is still incredibly fun to drive out on these winding mountain roads. I would say that this is almost as fun as the Mercedes CLA 45 AMG, which is my favorite front-wheel drive biased vehicle at the moment. The CLA 250 is an awful lot of fun, and I would actually tie the two of these together in terms of handling feel out on the road. Now, the CLA definitely drives bigger, but it handles slightly better than this. So it depends on what you're after, whether you're after the feel, the precision, or whether you're after the absolute handling number. Same sort of thing goes on with the Volkswagen GTI. The GTI actually holds the road a little bit better, but I don't think it feels quite as communicative as this Mini model. Now, as much fun as this base Mini Cooper is, the Mini Cooper S is that next notch higher in terms of the fun factor. When it comes to the ride, I give the model we're testing 6 out of 10 points. I found the ride in this particular vehicle a little bit harsh and a little bit choppy. It gets better if you get the base model with the 15-inch wheels, and it gets even better still if you get the option of the dynamic damping system, which is available in this generation of Mini. Now, the active damper system available in the Mini operates very similarly to what you see from Volvo and a number of BMW models out there. It basically uses electronically controlled valves in otherwise traditional dampers to allow them to become harder or softer. That definitely improves the ride. It also helps improve the handling by just a slight hair if you're in sport mode, where it firms things up and helps reduce body roll. Now, according to the EPA, the model that we're testing here should be averaging around 34 miles per gallon, but during my week of mixed driving, where I normally get about the EPA score, I have been averaging a little bit less. I've been coming in right between 30 and 31 miles per gallon, again in mixed driving. Now, some of that may have to do with the amount of fun that I've been having with the Mini, but I also suspect that many drivers may fail to get those lofty EPA numbers after all. Now, that said, I still need to give fuel economy 9 out of 10 points because this is very good and it really will give you 40 miles per gallon on the highway. I also engaged the start-stop system there, and the starting and the stopping this engine is as smooth as I would have expected from a 3-cylinder engine. This is a transverse engined vehicle, not a north-south engined vehicle like you'd find in your average BMW, and that means that the start-stop system is actually less perceptible than you see in the BMW 3 Series with their 4-cylinder engines. The body moves just a little bit less. It is very noticeable when you start and stop the engine, but it doesn't shake the car around quite as much as some of those other vehicles out there on the market. When it comes to cabin noise, I give this 8 out of 10 points. I measured 72 decibels at 50 miles an hour, which makes this one of the quieter subcompact entries in the United States. Now, certain versions of the Ford Fiesta and Ford Focus are a little bit quieter, but those wouldn't be the sporty versions of those vehicles. In fact, the Fiesta ST and the Focus ST are fairly loud out on the road, with the Focus ST coming in at 76 decibels at 50 miles an hour. When it comes to sounds in the cabin, you may notice something different about the Mini Cooper S model, and that is that it actually has an active noise generation system. It's not a noise cancellation system. This is a system designed to actually create noise to supposedly improve your driving experience. Basically, it's canned engine noise that is routed through a special speaker in the back of the vehicle, and it engages when that S model is in sport mode. The 6-speed manual transmission that is the default transmission option on the Cooper is one of the better manual transmissions out there on the market. It has a very solid, very Germanic feel to both the clutch as well as the shifter. Now, when it comes to road manners, what largely separates the Mini from the competition is the more expensive feel of the Mini. The Mini feels better put together in pretty much every way. The steering feels very precise, very well controlled, very direct. We actually get a lot of steering feedback even though we have an electric power steering system in this vehicle, and that's not something you get in most of the competition. In addition to that, things feel very buttoned down and very solid. It is possible to make the suspension get a little bit upset in certain corners if there's broken pavement, but on the whole, this is incredibly well behaved. Now, most small hatches can feel a little bit upset around corners, so that's not really something specific to the Mini. Now, I haven't received confirmation on this for the North American market yet. However, I am told that in Europe you will shortly be able to order the Mini Cooper with certain advanced safety systems and driver aids like lane departure warning as well as an advanced radar cruise control system. Overall, in the drive section, while the Volkswagen GTI will outhandle and out-accelerate a Mini Cooper or a Mini Cooper S, I think that the Mini Cooper, especially the Mini Cooper S, would be my favorite choice in this segment because it feels much more connected. It feels much more in tune with me out on the road. Of course, that in-tune feeling does come at a price, so let's talk about pricing now. The biggest thing to know about the Mini when it comes to pricing is that there are a lot of options available, and those options can get very expensive when you add them up. So it's easy to get carried away. Pricing for the base 1.5-liter model starts at $20,700. If you want the 2-liter engine in the S model, that will set you back $24,000 starting. Our model as tested has over $13,000 of options, coming in at $33,095. Now, if you want all the options on your 1.5-liter model, that will set you back $37,200. And if you top out your 2.0 model, it will end up over $40,000. Brand isn't the only thing that separates the Mini from the competition. Price is a big separator as well. The Mini is significantly more expensive than those other options out there, especially at the high end. However, a high-end Mini will have more options and features on the inside than you can get in any of those competitors. The Mini that we're taking a look at here has luxury and technology features like BMW's iDrive migrated down to the Mini. We also have BMW's full-color heads-up display right here in this Mini as well. Mini offers many luxury features from premium leather interiors to heads-up displays and BMW's iDrive that you just can't find in the rest of the competition. We also have full LED headlamps, full LED fog lamps right up front as well. Now, in addition to all those luxury gadgets and goodies, we also have a vehicle that handles incredibly and gets impeccable fuel economy. While the Mini offers an array of value packages, most of the options are also available as standalone options. That's relatively unique in the auto industry, but it allows you to personalize your Mini in ways that you can't with other manufacturers' vehicles. Most of the paint options available on the Mini are going to cost you $500 extra. There are only 2 colors that do not cost that extra $500. If you want the automatic transmission, that will set you back $1,250. Navigation is a standalone option, which I really like, and that's $1,250 as well. If you want leather on the inside, that will set you back between $1,500 and $1,750, depending on the option package that you get. One really nice touch is that the sunroof that I complained about earlier is a $1,000 standalone option, so you can get your vehicle fully loaded without the sunroof if you so choose. The a la carte option list even includes things like the LED headlamps, the heads-up display, 6 CD changer, that navigation system as I said earlier, the fog lamps, and a wide variety of other options that in competitive vehicles, they force you to bundle in order to help keep options and inventories low. Comparing the Mini to the competition is pretty tricky. The base Mini has a 3-cylinder engine, and pretty much the only other 3-cylinder engines you'll find in America are the Mitsubishi Mirage and the Ford Fiesta. The Mirage doesn't really compete with this in any way. Now, comparing this to the Ford Fiesta is awfully tricky because it's just not the same kind of vehicle. You'll pay an awful lot more for your Mini. It will get slightly better fuel economy on average in my tests. That's not including the 3-cylinder engine, of course. The Fiesta does get slightly better fuel economy in its 3-cylinder form, although it is less powerful than the Mini. The Kia Soul and the Volkswagen GTI are significantly larger than this, so obviously they have greater cargo practicality. They also have much improved rear seat room. However, both the handling and the feel in the Mini are far superior to the Volkswagen Golf or the GTI. And that's when you compare the GTI to the S model and the regular Golf to the base 1.5-liter Mini. This generation of Mini has actually lost weight over the last generation of Mini, and therefore it feels lighter out on the road. The handling has also improved over the last generation Mini, and the last generation Mini was a very good handling vehicle. Now, when it comes to value, that's a little bit tricky because, again, this fish is swimming in an incredibly small pond. And because of that, I'm going to have to give this 9 out of 10 points when it comes to value because there isn't anything else out there that competes with this. Again, you can get more luxury features and more luxury options in the Mini than you can in anything else that competes with it in America. Of course, if you're in Europe, that's a different matter, but we don't have those options in this country. So would I buy the Mini? That's a really tricky question. The Mini is very different from the rest of those options, as I keep saying in this video. However, I think that if it were me shopping around in this segment, I would probably buy a fully loaded Kia Soul before I bought the Mini. However, that doesn't mean that the Soul is a better value or a better vehicle overall than the Mini. I think the Mini is by far the better vehicle, and I actually think they represent relatively similar value. And if you're asking how that can possibly be when the Soul is much less expensive than the Mini, the answer simply is in the options that you can get in the Mini that you cannot get in the Soul, and the additional refinement and driving abilities of the Mini. Now, strangely enough, the Mini would also be less expensive to operate because even though we don't get quite as long of a warranty as we do in the Kia, we also get scheduled maintenance in this vehicle, and the fuel economy is notably higher than that Soul. Now, if I had a little bit of extra cash to spend, I would get the Mini Cooper S with the manual transmission, the LED headlamps, the navigation system, fully loaded infotainment system, and the leather seats. I would probably stop there if it were me. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. Again, I'm Alex Dykes, and this is a 2015 Mini Cooper Hardtop. Go ahead and click that subscribe banner at the bottom of your screen so you can be updated on all of my latest videos. I also encourage you to find me over at facebook.com/AlexandAutos, over at Twitter as AlexandAutos, and you can always email your questions to alex@alexandautos.com. I'll see you next week.